Connie, I know you've seen some of our stuff, but Alejandra, knowing a little bit more about your background, I'm excited to get your opinion. I think we'll be talking a little bit about the brain and about some of that today. And so I'm excited to
I'm
have
very
you.
excited because I
Yeah.
was very impressed when I got that email. So let's move forward. Good afternoon. My name is Connie Guerrero. I'm the Community Engagement Manager for Blue Shield California Promise Health Plan. I want to say welcome and thank you to our host, Boys and Girls Club, and our co-host, Blue Shield California Promise Health Plan. Thank you for the panelists. Thank you to the panelists and the attendees who are taking the time to join us today, as we will be discussing this very important topic. Before I introduce our moderator, I want to go over some housekeeping. During the presentation, everybody is in listening mode only. There will be time for questions and answers at the end of the webinar. I want to make sure that you utilize your comment and chat features whenever you have a question. Feel free to type in your question whenever you have them throughout the presentation. I would now like to introduce the moderator, Alejandra Barrientos, Wellness Check Case Manager from the Boys and Girls Club. At this time, I would like to turn it over to Alejandra.
Thank you, Connie. As we are asked to spend more time at home during the pandemic to protect ourselves from COVID-19, we know that many families are experiencing challenges and uncertainties around the topics that we will be discussing with you today in our webinars, which is 4 series. It is now more important than ever that we provide support and resources to those in need, as we will be returning to a state of normalization to try to deal with the daily struggles on social determinant of health. So I would like now to introduce our presenter, Andres de la Pesa, Director of Learning, Woodcraft Ranger Organization. Andres de la Pesa has been supporting Los Angeles youth as a nonprofit professional since 2008. Currently, he serves as a Director of Learning at Woodcraft Rangers, supporting programs, curriculum, and training design and evaluation. Prior to Woodcraft Rangers, Andres created and led trauma-informed trainings for over 4 years as a Senior Manager and National Director of Training with Up to Us Sports. Andres has also worked with City Year LA, leading whole school enrichment and support in South Los Angeles, and was Program Director for the Soccer and Literacy Program, America Scores LA, in the community of Palms. Andres proudly served as an AmeriCorps Vista and is an alumnus of Santa Clara University. I would now like to introduce our presenter, Andres de la Pesa. Andres will be presenting on mental health, dealing with anxiety, depression, and fear. At this moment, I would like to turn it over to Andres.
Thank you so much, Alejandra. Thank you, everybody. However you may be joining us this afternoon, this evening, happy Friday, and thank you so much for being a part of this session. I want to start by thanking the Boys and Girls Club of Whittier, and as well as Blue Shield, for putting on and hosting this incredible opportunity. And I'm excited to be able to share some information with our community today. As we begin, let's get started. As Alejandra mentioned, we're going to be talking about mental health today. We're going to be talking about the impacts of the past year, specifically around how can we understand and deal with the anxiety, depression, and fear that some of us may be feeling, or that we know our communities are certainly feeling as well. So I'm excited to be able to explore this with you all today, and talk about it a little bit more thoroughly throughout the next half an hour. Our hopes for today, right? Sort of what I hope that we walk away with is everyone who's a part of this, I hope that you will leave with an understanding of what stress is, and how it impacts our mental health. We're really going to explore sort of trying to understand mental health from a base and foundational level, and that's going to start with an understanding of stress. We also want to walk away with an understanding of just what does mental health actually mean, right? What does the word mean, and how can we make sure that we understand that? And then finally, we're going to talk a little bit about some tools and some best practices, right? How can we lead the session with a better understanding of how we can support our own mental health, and how we can move forward in a way that allows us to be proactive about supporting ourselves and setting us up well. I come back from sport and come from a background of youth development. I know that we have people join multiple platforms, but we are going to try to start with activity. And so I know, even though I know I'm going to invite you to try something. And so all we need is just something to write with and something to write on. And so walk you through it, and then we can also explain a little bit more about it afterwards. But this is also a time where if you're with us on Zoom, feel free, and if you feel comfortable, you can turn on your camera and you can try this with us. But all I want you to do is, if you have something to write with, I want you just to sign your name. Right? If you don't have anything to write with, I want you to think about sort of the process that you go through just to sign your name and to write your signature. And so if we did that really quickly, right, it moves seamlessly. We do it very quickly. We don't even think about it oftentimes. The opposite side, I want you to think about how it feels if I were to ask you to do that same thing, but to do it with your non-dominant hand. So right-handed, how would you feel if I asked you to sign your name with your hand? And vice versa, if you're left-handed, how would you feel if I asked you to sign your name with your right hand? And when I do this activity with youth or with coaches or with teachers or with professionals, right, when we sign our name regularly with our dominant hands, right, we feel confident, we feel comfortable, we feel in control, and we don't often even give a thought to the act of actually writing our signature. It's something that we do so often, and we do without that intentional thought. But as soon as we get a new variable, as soon as we ask you to do it a little bit differently, to sign it with your non-dominant hands, right, I often see those same teachers, those same professionals with a shock in their face, right, not knowing how to begin, not knowing how to hold their pen and what's a comfortable position. And there's an extreme discomfort and an extreme uncertainty that comes with that request, right? And all we introduced was sort of just changing how we do a very common act from your dominant hand to your non-dominant hand. And so if you were able to do that, or if you were able to be sort of present in walking through that situation with me, right, the reason why we ask you to think about that, and the reason that I ask other participants to engage in that activity, is because it highlights how quickly we can become uncomfortable. It highlights how simple it is for our sense of safety, right, to be disrupted. And it also highlights how our brains and how our bodies respond when a certain level of stress is introduced to our normal routine, right? We've been asked to do something differently than we're used to. Right? And that discomfort, right, and that uncertainty introduces a little bit of stress into our lives, right? That makes us uncomfortable and makes us question ourselves, right, and our own abilities, right? And our body has a reaction to that, right, that causes us to feel a different way, maybe increases our heart rate a little bit, or makes it hard for us to think and to concentrate. And so just that simple activity can highlight how stress impacts our behaviors and how stress can also impact our emotions and the way that we feel. And as we're here to talk about our sense of mental health, right, and the feelings of anxiety, fear, and depression, right, we want to explore where that all begins. And a lot of times that begins in our feelings of stress, right, that come from a multitude of different things, right, that there are a variety of different reasons that cause us stress. And so we want to explore that a little bit so that we can understand where these emotions are really come from, or are really coming from, so that we can have a better understanding of how to handle those, and then how to move forward to a place of positive mental health as well. So to begin, right, we need to make sure that we understand what stress actually is. And it's a term that we use all the time. It's something that we use to describe so many different situations that we might find ourselves in, but oftentimes it's hard to describe what the word actually means. And so for us, right, what we want to do is make sure that we're first on the same page when it comes to what do we mean when we talk about stress. And so the definition that we're going to use today is this, that stress is the degree to which we feel overwhelmed or unable to cope as a result of pressures that are unmanageable. That the way that we feel is that we're feeling overwhelmed, right? We're unable to deal with whatever might be happening around us in a way that is healthy and in a way that is productive, right? Because of all the things that are happening to us are just too much. Right? We're not able to handle them all, and our system and body gets overwhelmed, right? And so we run to this place where now we have a different type of reaction. And so this is what stress means, right? And this is what we mean by, we're going to explore where this comes from and the impact that this has on our brains and on our bodies. And so if this is what stress is, right, we want to think about, where does stress come from? Right? What are some of the things in life that actually have, or that cause stress? And this is where the definition of that, where the definition of this actually comes from. It comes from the Mental Health Foundation. And so the things that cause stress are, diverse, right? There are things like learning or trying something new. And a perfect example of that is our quick signature activity, right? Something as simple as learning to sign our name with our non-dominant hand can really cause us to feel a little bit of stress. Something like traffic causes us to feel stressed. We get overwhelmed. We're maybe running late for something, or we're frustrated with how much traffic there is, especially maybe now that there's more traffic on the road than there was a year ago when the pandemic had just begun, right? But traffic can cause us stress. Things like technology issues, especially now, whether it's ourselves on meetings like this on Zoom, right, or with our children, right, or with our family members who are in digital learning in a variety of situations. We know it can be really stressful to try to navigate, how do I get into my Google Classroom? How do I make sure that I submit my homework on time? Right, that all of those things feel so out of our control and can cause us to feel stress as well. Additionally, like work, things like school, things like finances can cause us to feel stress. Getting sick can cause us to feel stress, right? We're missing out on an opportunity, or we're worried about our personal health, right? Whenever we face uncertainty, right? We're not sure what's happening next, right? We feel out of control in the moment. Those can help us feel, or can cause us to feel stress, right? And obviously a global pandemic can cause us to feel stressed out, right? All of our existence in the past year has just been very stressful because of the circumstances that have been around us. And the combination of all of those has gotten to a place where it can feel very overwhelming, and we are no longer able to feel in control, right, of our ability to respond. And so we've started with defining what we think stress is, right? We've identified some of the places that stress might come from, right? And the next thing we want to do is we actually want to understand a little bit about now what happens when we are stressed, right? When we are in these situations, when we're stuck in traffic, or we're having tech issues, right? Or we're trying to learn something new, right? We know we feel stressed out, but what does that actually mean in terms of how we feel and how we act? And to do that, right, we're actually going to explore a little bit about how we're made as humans. We're going to dive into sort of how the brain works. And we want to sort of try to develop an understanding of how stress and our brain interact with each other, right? And the results that come of the two of them, of the two of those situations occurring. And so to do this, right, we have our beautiful, wonderful selves, right, as humans, as wonderful individuals. And the two parts of our brain that we want to understand and that really play a significant role in our sort of reaction to stress are called the prefrontal cortex and our limbic system. Right? And so our prefrontal cortex actually sits right behind our forehead. It's the part of our brain that controls rational thought and critical decision making. It's what makes us unique as humans, and also what makes us unique as individuals. It's what allows us to have, personal thoughts and individual thoughts. It's also where we think. It's where we do our processing. And when we're at work or we're at school and we're making challenging decisions, the part of our brain that is in control of those functions is our prefrontal cortex. This is why it's so important that we tell kids to wear helmets when they're riding a bike, right, or doing any sort of dangerous activity, because the front of that helmet covers our forehead, right, so that it protects our prefrontal cortex, because that's such an important part of our brain. The limbic system is a part of our brain that controls our emotions and our memory, as well as our sense of protection. It's what tells us when danger is around, and it's what helps us run into those situations of, do we fight, do we fly, or do we freeze, right? Our responses to danger are controlled by our limbic system. Right? And that's a part of our brain that sort of sits closer to the back of our brain towards the center, and it controls some of those primal reactions that we have as humans, but it's what keeps us safe, and it's what in moments of danger helps protect us for those situations, so that we always have our self-preservation. It's our survival instincts are housed in our limbic system. And so I know this is different. I know this isn't maybe what we were planning on talking about, but this is important because we want to understand how this impacts, our reaction to stress. And so again, right, our prefrontal cortex has our critical thinking and our decision making, right? That's our important selves. That's our thinking brain, as it's called. And then again, our limbic system, right, is where we have our emotions, where we have our memories, and where we have our sense of protection and survival. And so what happens in those stressful situations, right, all of those moments that we just listed through, right, whether we're stuck in traffic, or we're learning something new, or we're have a big project at work or at school, we start to feel that stress that comes with those moments. And what happens is that our limbic system gets activated, right? Our emotions and our memory and our sense of protection get heightened, right? And we end up spending more of our energy in that part of our brain. But in order to send more energy to our limbic system, right? Our brain actually has to shut down our prefrontal cortex. It has to divert energy away from our prefrontal cortex to send more energy towards our limbic system. And so in those moments when we are very stressed, right, our prefrontal cortex, our ability to think critically, right, and to make rational decisions actually diminishes, right? That when we are really stressed, because of how our brain works, right, it has a limited amount of fuel, right? And it sends more of that fuel to our limbic system so that we can focus on surviving and protecting ourselves. And it says in this moment, it's less important for you to think critically. This front part of your brain, that's all well and good, but you don't need that right now. You need to focus on survival, right? You need to focus on protecting yourself. And you're going to do that through your emotions and through your sense of protection. And so our brain shuts down that part, right? It shuts down our prefrontal cortex, right? And it actually impairs our ability to make critical decisions and to think rationally. And this is why maybe in times when we're in an argument, right, we might say or do something that we don't mean because we're not thinking critically, because we have less access to the part of our brain that controls that, right? This is also why if we're on the freeway and someone merges into our lane, we don't stop to think about the situation first. We swerve to avoid the accident. We do that without thinking because it's more important in that moment to protect our safety than it is to think about the situation. And so our brain is wired to respond to stress in this way. So at any time that stress is introduced into our lives, right, when we feel that heightened sense of emotion, our ability to think critically, right, and make decisions gets diminished. And this is very important for the field of youth development and for after school, because this is when a young person is upset or when they got in a fight for some reason, right? And we ask them, what were you thinking? A lot of times they weren't. They were not able to critically think in that moment because they were stressed. They were trying to protect themselves in the only way that they knew how. And it was with a behavior that maybe was not appropriate for that moment, right? But was in their mind the safest thing that they could do to protect themselves. And so this is important because this is just as true for kids as it is for us as adults. But we just want to remember that when we are stressed and when we have these feelings of heightened emotions, right, that our ability to be our best selves, that our ability to think rationally and perform at our best is impaired. And we are no longer as strong as we once were when we are feeling calm. And so as a result of this, a lot of things can happen, right? That when we are in this state, right, what can happen as a result of stress is that our bodies, right, and our moods and our behaviors can become impacted, right? And what happens to our body is that we can have sort of physical manifestations of pain, right? We can have headaches, we can feel tired, right? We can have an upset stomach, or we can have trouble sleeping, right? And I'm sure that in relation to stress, we can understand this is happening, right? We've got a big project or an assignment due the next day, and I'm thinking about it, and so I have a hard time sleeping, right? Or we're getting stressed, and so now I have a headache, or I'm feeling tired all the time, right? Those are actually responses to the stress that we are feeling in those moments. And the same thing with our mood. We can feel anxious. We can feel like we have a lack of motivation or a lack of focus. And we can also feel sad or depressed, or we can feel angry, right? And that those can be, again, a result of the stress that we are feeling in that moment. And finally, our behaviors can be impacted as well. We can start to withdraw socially, right? We stop connecting with the people around us, right? We can get angry and upset, right? And we can also be led down different areas in terms of substance abuse, or how we're trying to cope in those moments, right? But again, there are a variety of reasons that we might feel these ways, right? And, some of these might be, because of our own, health history, right? But one of the reasons why we might have some of these feelings is because of the stress that is around us. And we know that living in the world that we have been for the past 14 months has been a stressful existence, right? That just being present in this pandemic has added a significant amount of stress to all of our lives and to all of the lives of the young people that we work and that we live with on a daily basis. And the presence of that stress alone can cause and can lead to some of these feelings, right? So when we talk about dealing with fear and dealing with anxiety and dealing with depression, while there can be a lot of different reasons that those feelings can come up, one of them can be that we've just been living in a heightened sense of stress for a very long time. And the longer that we live within the stress, right, the harder it is for us to overcome. And to sort of understand this idea a little bit more, actually, I want you to think about the idea of holding a glass of water, right? That if I asked you to hold a glass of water, right, for a few moments, right, it's a very simple task, right? It's not very heavy. You feel very capable of doing that. But the longer I ask you to hold that glass of water, the heavier it becomes. And the more water I put into that glass, the heavier it becomes. And so if we think about the glass itself as our life, and if we think about the water as the stress that we feel on a daily basis, right? Over the past year, we have been holding a full glass of water outstretched for the entire 14, 15, 16 months that we have been in this. And so it's a lot easier for us to feel those feelings of anxiety and fear and depression because we've been dealing with it for such a long time. And so it does not mean that if you've been feeling that way, you are broken or you are less than or you are weak. It just means that your body is responding in the way that we are naturally designed to respond, right, to these feelings of stress, and that you have been dealing with those feelings for a very long time. And so the thing that we want to do now and to talk about is, what is it? If this is what stress is, what is the other side, right? If we're talking about how we feel when we, or where these feelings of fear and anxiety, of depression, where they come from, what is on the other side of that coin? And that's what we're here today for, right? We're here to understand just what is mental health. And so on the other side of that coin is mental health. And mental health means that it's a state of well-being, right? In which a person, an individual, realizes their own abilities, right? And can cope with the normal stresses of life, right? Where we can work productively and fruitfully, right? And where we're able to make a contribution to our community, right? And this actually comes from the World Health Organization, right? And so whereas stress is a state of not being able to manage the stresses of life, mental health is a state of being able to handle the stresses of life. And different ways for us to think about this can include that we want to, when we are mentally healthy, this is when we are staying in our thinking brain. This is when our thinking brain is engaged, our prefrontal cortex, right? The part of our brain that we talked about that's in control of our critical thinking and decision making, right? That mental health is when we are able to stay engaged in our thinking brain and our prefrontal cortex. Another way of thinking about our mental health is that it's how we put our glass down. Right? If we've been holding on to that glass of water for the last 14 months, right? Mental health is allowing ourselves to put our glass down and to be able to rest and to relax. And so we want to talk about, to end this, right? Just what can we do? How do we actually do that? How do we put our glass down? And again, here's the citation for that definition. Right? How can we put our glass down? Right? And we have a few different ways that we can do this. Right? The first way that we can do this is by understanding what's going on, right? And that we want to know what mental health is, right? And we want to know how stress impacts our brain and our body. And just by understanding mental health and just by understanding what stress is and how it impacts us as individuals, that can give us a greater sense of control over those feelings. Again, that they're not things that are out of our control. They're not things that we have no control over, that we are just being inflicted upon, right? Those are feelings that are coming from specific experiences that we have had, right? And we don't have to always be controlled by them, that you as an individual can work through all of those moments. And so we want to regain that sense of control, that stress, and managing that stress is actually a skill that we can practice. And so that sense of understanding is important. The next thing is that we want to stay connected. One of the ways that we can put our glass down and one of the ways that we can stay in the healthy part of our brain is by being connected with individuals. And I know that this was one of the biggest challenges with the pandemic, was how isolated we all had to be for each other's safety, right? That we were not able to connect with other people in the way that we felt most comfortable. And so now, as things continue to normalize and we transition into, what feels more like a traditional day in life, right? Those relationships with our friends and our family are more important than ever, right? And the relationships that our young people have with us, with their friends, with their colleagues, with their teachers, with their peers, with their after-school providers, right? That all of those relationships help us be resilient as humans, whether it's as a child or as an adult. Right. And so finding safe ways to stay connected is one of the things that we can do to be able to help us deal with that stress, to be able to manage that stress, right? And be able to promote our own mental health. That those friendships and those relationships, even if it's just one person, is one of the most important ways that we and that kids can stay connected to each other and stay promoting our own mental health. The third is that we have to also just be patient with ourselves, and we have to be graceful with ourselves. And what that means is that, we have to understand that things don't change overnight, right? That dealing with some of these challenging feelings that we might be experiencing, or that others that we love or that we know might be experiencing, is not something that changes with one action. That we have to be able to identify small skills or small wins. And if we think about managing our stress and promoting mental health as a skill, right, we can compare it to other skills that we have, right? That if we wanted to learn how to play the piano, right, we don't just expect to be able to read a book or watch a video or take a lesson and then the next day be able to play everything perfectly. We take it step by step. We progress in small steps and small increments, and we make small changes that eventually over time add up to making big differences. And it's the same thing with promoting our mental health. That in order for us to be proactive and have positive mental health, it's about taking small steps and identifying small wins over the course of a long time that are going to help us promote those feelings and have and develop healthy behaviors that are going to help us in the long run. And so we have to know that it takes time and not get upset if we're not seeing the progress we want to see in a short period of time, or not get upset if we step back every once in a while, right? And especially with young people, that if we see them doing well and constantly improving, and then one day they regress or they take a step back or they do something they shouldn't have, it doesn't mean that the process has been broken. It just means that they have developed naturally, and we just now need to keep moving forward in whatever ways that we can. So we have to be patient and graceful with ourselves when thinking about dealing with our mental health and understanding our, some of these challenging feelings in terms of fear and anxiety and depression. And then finally, we have to explore what supports we have available to ourselves and find ways, right, to continue to be engaged in healthy ways. And these can include things certainly like exercise and physical activity. Right, that being physically active has a direct correlation to our mental health. That when we are physically active, our brains are healthier, right? They're more able to learn, right? And this is true for adults and for young people as well, right? And I'm sure you've all experienced that, and we were talking about it before the call, how just a quick walk around the block can help the way that we feel and can change our mood and can clear our minds. Right. So things like exercise and physical activity help support our mental health because of the biological connection, because all these feelings start in our brain, and physical activity helps improve the way our brain operates. Additionally, though, things just like hobbies, finding things that you love and being able to explore passions that you have, whether it's puzzles or games or knitting or whatever it might be, or cooking, right? Everyone was baking sourdough for a while, right? And so all of these different hobbies are things that can also help support our mental health, doing things that we love, doing things that we care about, right? They obviously make us happy because we're enjoying it, but they're also skills that are forcing us to think critically. They're things that require our thought and our attention. And if it's something that requires our thought and our attention, then that means that in order to do that activity, we are in the part of our brain that helps us be in control. Right? And so things that keep us in that prefrontal cortex, things that keep us in our thinking brain, right, help us feel mentally healthy. And that's why things like video games for some people, right, or reading or whatever it might be, or crossword puzzles and Sudoku, all of those things are amazing for our mental health because they keep us in the healthy part of our brain, right, where we're not controlled by our emotions anymore. And then obviously we want to make sure that we're also aware of general mental health services, that sometimes, right, we need the support of others and that we need the support of professionals, and that we can do all of the right things and still want to have some of that aid and want to have some of that external support. And so we want to make sure that that we're taking advantage of everything that we possibly can, whether it's things that we love to do or whether it's finding professional help as well. Right, that all of those supports are things that we want to make sure that we're exploring, and then we want to make sure that we're seeking to understand and provide for ourselves as well as for others. And so these are not sort of your cure-alls. These are not the magical keys to having a perfect life and having amazing mental health forever. But these are small steps that we can all take, right? And that we can all work on immediately to help promote our mental health, right? And help us set that glass of water down that we've been carrying with us so long, that has felt so heavy and that has been such a burden on us. And it does not, just because you are tired or just because you are fearful or just because you are anxious, does not mean that you are a bad person. It does not mean that you are now defined by those feelings. It just means that you've been working really hard for a long time, right, to take care of yourself in the only way that you know how. Right. And like I said, it's a very natural reaction that we have as humans to develop those feelings, right? That they come as a result of feeling that stress that we have all been a part of because we've been living in this just tremendous year. And so this is a time for us to start thinking about what we can do to promote our mental health, what we can do to set that glass down or to pour a little bit of that water out. And every time we do something in some of these buckets, it's going to help us accomplish that goal, right? So just your presence here, whether it's on Zoom or in Facebook or in person, right? Just by listening and understanding how our brains and bodies work and where these emotions come from is going to lighten that cup, right? With every relationship, with every call that we make, every dinner that we have, or every time that we are able to say hi to someone, that is going to lighten our cup as well. Right? Every time we recognize that it's a process and that we don't have to be perfect, and that it's okay if we feel this way because we need to get better over time, that it took us a year and over a year to get to where we are today. And so it's going to take some time to make sure that we change and get back to who we feel is our normal self. And every time we are patient with ourselves in that way, we're going to lighten our cup. And then finally, every time we take advantage of another support or find another service that makes us feel good, or practice a hobby, or go for a walk, or walk the dog, or play with our kids, right? That every time we do something like that, or that we call for support when we need it, that too is going to lighten our cup as well. And that's our goal. It's not to pour the cup out all at once. It's to slowly over time, right, do what we can to where that weight doesn't feel so heavy anymore, and to where we get to a place where we don't feel overwhelmed by the feelings, but we feel in control of everything that's happening, because that's when we are fully mentally healthy, right? When we feel in control. Mental health does not mean the absence of all stress. Life is inherently stressful, and it was stressful before COVID, and it will be stressful after COVID as well, right? But the difference isn't, the goal isn't to try to avoid all stress. It's to just be in a place where the stress that we are feeling is manageable, and to where we feel okay within those settings. And if there's one thing that this past year has done, it's tested how much we can handle at a single time. And so thank you so much for all of you for being here. Thank you for listening. I know we have a little bit of time for questions, and so I'll stop sharing right now. But whether you joined us again on the Zoom or via Facebook, or in person at the club. Again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being a part of this speaker series. I hope some of this information was useful, and I look forward to the subsequent speakers over the course of the next month. So thank you so much. And I think Alejandra, I think you can direct me in terms of what is next.
Yes, thank you. That was great, Andres. Thank you so much. We did have a comment on our Facebook Live, and it says, "I love what you just said. Listen to our body." So I think this was in regards to the glass, the water, and it's being gracious to yourself, right? That you may be holding a lot, but I guess Stephanie here took away that it's important to listen to our body. And we have here another comment on our Facebook Live. It says, "My parents taught me meditation from a young age. I love it." And this is from Herman Salazar. And Herman is also saying, "Thank you, very useful, thumbs up."
Amazing. That's all I hope. But no, yeah, I think these feelings can make us feel bad, right? They can make us feel like we're not good humans, or that we're doing something wrong, right? And I think that's really unfortunate, right? Because these feelings are completely natural, right? These are very commonplace reactions, and they're what our body is actually designed to do. And so all we're doing is doing the things that we're supposed to do. And so I think hopefully having a positive outlook towards the future, understanding where that comes from, and knowing that we ourselves are not bad people, or that we're not broken, I think is a really important step for us, and specifically for people of color, right, to be able to acknowledge during this time.
Right, yes. And here we have another question regarding anxiety. It's asking, how can I help my husband with anxiety? ¿Cómo puedo ayudar a mi esposo con la ansiedad?
Yeah. I mean, I think the first thing, and obviously I'm not a clinical professional, right? And so I think, the first thing I'll say is I think you can always find professionals, right? Find professional help, right? With Connie's here and with Blue Shield. And I think that always knowing where those resources are. But I think as a partner, as a wife, I think just being there, right? Listening, being patient, right? And trying to understand, or maybe not trying to fix, but just trying to be there as like a support, that goes to that idea of the importance of relationships. And so I know it can be really hard, because dealing with someone who is an anxious person can make you feel anxious and can make you feel stressful. And so I would just say that, being present and continuing to show up even when it's hard is a huge help already.
Definitely. Thank you. If you have any questions or comments, or how you use your time to honor your body, how you connect with friends, feel free to put it in the chat at the bottom of your screen. I will be more than happy to read those to Andres and here to our members. I'm not sure my co-host, Connie, if you'd like to add. Elizabeth says, "Thank you for the information." And anyone on Facebook Live, do you want to ask any questions or comments?
I'll go ahead and share, Alejandra. Thank you. So for me, it's definitely exercising. It's not doing 20 miles a day, but just going for a walk, just getting out of the house. And I think I really practice it more too, because I have a 17-year-old, and I really want to encourage him to get him out of the house, because it's been hard. So going on a daily walk with either my husband, my kids, has really helped our family. The other thing we like to do as well is we don't have to go nowhere. We could just go sit outside, and just some watering. They come and talk to me, just getting out of the house. I think that has helped as well. And other things you could do is probably that would help others and yourself is just checking in on your loved ones. checking in, how you doing. Everybody likes that. So, I mean, if you haven't been practicing that, that could be another thing you could do. But for me, it's definitely just getting out of the house because we could get so busy or so overwhelmed and we could just get stuck. So,
Yeah, I think for me, it's a reminder to take a deep breath, because I know that I find myself that when I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm like holding my breath. So it's like, okay, no, take a deep breath, you know, even just putting a timer for a minute. Um, I like to do that. And I also, when I see that my children are overwhelmed with, you know, activities or even just what they see on social media or the news, it's like, take a deep breath and remind yourself you got this. Even just doing this, just to have some grounding, or go outside and step barefoot on the grass for some grounding technique is another thing that I enjoy too, that contributes to wellness and my mental health.
I agree with that. Yeah, that's definitely, I mean, also meditating. I mean, just putting like um meditation music. I mean, just sit there and listen to that relaxing music. That is really good. I do it for my grandbabies and it really helps to slow them down, to put them, get them ready for bed. So just listening to relaxing music. It don't have to be nothing crazy, but just for a couple of, maybe a couple of minutes, 5 minutes, trust me, it will just relax you.
Oh, it's really interesting, like music and breathing and walking, um, and sports to a certain extent, right? Like bouncing a ball, right? There's research, I think, around like all of those have a certain level of rhythm, right? There's a beat to it that you can follow, and there's research that says that doing things like that have a certain rhythm to it help calm us, because they remind us as babies when we were in the womb, right? When we heard our mother's heartbeat, and we heard the sound of like the blood around us, that it's the same reason we rock a baby, right? Because it's how they felt when they were in the womb, which was the safest place ever, right? It's like, I'm good, you got everything you need. But some of those things go all the way back to when, we were, when we were in our parents and in our mother, and that feeling of safety stays with us. And so like when we walk or we jog and we have that rhythm to us, or we bounce a basketball back and forth with someone, or we dance or listen to good music, part of that rhythm helps calm us down, because it takes us all the way back to those unconscious memories that we have of safety that are so closely tied to our mother. So shout out to the moms.
Yeah, definitely, especially right now.
Yeah.
I
So
agree with you, Andres. Definitely shout out to the moms.
yeah.
I think also just being open, looking for, like Andres mentioned, looking for professional help, and sharing with friends and family on how you're feeling. I think that also could be a really great way to um, get started in getting some sort of help.
There any more comments, more thumbs up on Facebook Live? Thank you, Andres. Thank you, Tani. Um, I don't know, Andres, if you'd like to use this time to share on Woodcraft Rangers.
Sure. Yeah, no, I'd be happy to. So no, I'm grateful to be here, in partnership with Blue Shield and with Boys and Girls Club of Whittier. As was mentioned, I'm with an organization called Woodcraft Rangers. We're another after school program here in Los Angeles. We're proud to be almost 100 years old. We'll be celebrating our centennial in 2022. And we provide sampling-based enrichment after-school programs across the city. We currently don't have any schools in Whittier, and unfortunately during the pandemic, those partnerships changed, but we provide partnerships to over 70 schools across the city, where we allow kids to choose different clubs and different activities that they engage with throughout the course of the year to be able to explore their interests, to be able to find new interests so that they can find pathways to purposeful lives. So we do that during the after school program during the year. We also run a camp program in the summer that includes both summer day camps for students to engage in and enroll in. We also host a residential camp in Idlewild down in the San Jacinto Mountains towards Palm Springs. And so as we speak, some of our students are coming back from a week in the mountains with our team. And we're very fortunate to have 2 more weeks worth of residential camp programming taking place throughout the rest of the summer. But we were founded with a deep intention towards outdoor education, and we continue to be tied to that. And, Connie, you mentioned it, right? Just going outside is a big part of what helps you feel grounded. And that's a big part of our mission as well. And so our camps are open to everyone. One of our goals is to make the outdoors accessible for all youth. And so for youth within the community, we offer a significant amount of scholarships to make those week-long residential programmings accessible to as many kids as possible, so they can experience outdoors, so they can experience camp, and so they can meet other kids from around the city as well. Because we know one of the best things about going to camp is just being with new friends and making new memories. And so where those camp programs are open to everyone, not just participants in our school programs. And so we look forward to being able to offer that to youth across the city. But yeah, like I said, we've been around for almost 100 years. We'll be continuing to serve kids throughout next year. We also have a text message platform where we send direct resources to parents through PDF. You receive a text message and you get a link that has a PDF for different activities that you can run with your kids. It also has a link to different, we send out bright spots during the week for just good news, as well as something called the Caregiver Connection, which are just tips for promoting mental health and for promoting safe spaces. And so it's a free service that you can receive if you text. I can put it in the chat, but if you text the word birch to 56512, you do have some your standard messaging and data rates, right, apply. But if you text this word to this number, then you can enroll in this free program. And we're joined by my son right now too. So we're all in it, but no, we're very excited to be partnering with Blue Shield and with Boys and Girls Club for this amazing opportunity. So just thank you again for having me.
Thank you, Andres. It's our pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing about the wonderful activities and resources to our community. At this time, I would like to introduce Cynthia Navarro. She's our branch supervisor here at the Boys and Girls Club of Whittier, and she will be presenting briefly on our activities and service.
Hi, everyone. So thank you so much. My name is Cynthia Navarro, and I am the branch director here at the Boys and Girls Club of Whittier. So I just wanted to share a few. Alejandra has a flyer there, so hopefully she can share screen. Thank you. Just a little bit about our program here. We offer, first of all, we're open to anyone, so they don't have to be a part of a certain district to come here to the main clubhouse. We do run sites at different schools as well. East Whittier, Whittier City. I know I'm forgetting some, Alejandra, but we offer a van service. We are going to be opening that back up in the fall to pick up members from different school sites if they don't have transportation from their school site after school, because some of them don't have our program. So we will be offering the van service to them. We have homework assistants here. We have mentors running mentorship programs here. We have a STEM room that we work with Xbots. We're ordering all new equipment for them. So we're making a lot of upgrades here. So it's really awesome. We offer a lot of different arts, music, instruments, We have our sports program through LA 84. So we actually are partnered with the Junior Lakers, and we have our healthy living. We also partnered with WWE for some programs for healthy living. We have a recording studio now that is open to all of our members, not just our teens. And so they're going to be working with a specialist, learning how to do like podcasting, how to do like YouTube videos, tutorials, recording music. We also have teen programs that we're partnered with Whittier College, and they'll be supporting with like college bound programs, and so many more things. And I do apologize. This was kind of a last minute, so I'm trying to think of all of everything that we have here. We also offer a summer program, which we're in right now, is our summer program. We're open full day, and for the fall we'll be open after school. We also offer, we're hardly closed here, so when the school sites are closed, we're open here at the clubhouse during spring break, during the fall, and during the winter as well. We do have a membership fee, but we also have scholarships for families that can't afford the scholarship fee. So it's $45 for the year for the membership.
And if families, so the other schools that we partner with are South Whittier School District, El Rancho Unified, Los Nietos School District, Whittier City School District, and East Whittier School District. But like Cynthia shared, we are open to other cities near us. I believe that we also have students from Downey, right, Cynthia?
Yes, and Pico Rivera.
Okay, yes. So if you have any information or would like more information, we encourage you to visit our website, www.cgcw.org, or you can call the number that's there on the screen. I will be emailing this flyer to everyone that's participating today. Yes, it's a great opportunity to have the youth come to our drop-in center. Cynthia, one question. When does the fall program begin?
August 10th. So we're ending summer August 6th, and then that Tuesday we're resuming for fall program. So August 10th.
Okay, great. Thank you. And if there are any questions, please feel free to insert that in the chat. And I'm going to stop sharing our beautiful flyer. Okay. 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 So if there are any more questions or comments, I think it's safe to perhaps conclude tonight's webinar. We do have another one next week on Friday. Our webinars are hosted by myself and Connie. And we thank you so much, Andres, for presenting on mental health today. What a great and wonderful presentation. Thank you, Cynthia Navarro, for joining us and presenting on our resources, as well as Andres with Woodcraft Rangers. If you have any questions or comments, you may reach out to me. I do have your contact information, and in the email that you received today, you can find my phone number there as well. Our next webinar is next week on July 23rd at 5:30, and I believe the topic is on the dangers of vaping. So we encourage you to join us at 5:30. We'll be looking forward to seeing all of you. Andres, I hope if you have some time, feel free to join us for the next 3 webinar series that we have.
Certainly, I look forward to it.
Great, thank you. All right, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you next week. Have a beautiful weekend, rest, enjoy your families, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
everyone.
Have a good one.
Thank you so much, everybody.